The fifth step on the path toward riches is the principle of imagination. The imagination is described as literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by humanity. It is through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind that the impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action. It has often been said that a person can create anything which they can first imagine. Of all the ages of civilization, the modern era is the most favorable for the development of the imagination, primarily because it is an age of rapid change. On every hand, one may contact stimuli which serve to develop this faculty. Through the aid of imagination, humanity has discovered and harnessed more of nature's forces during the past 50 years than during the entire history of the human race previous to that time. Humankind has conquered the air so completely that birds are a poor match for them in flying. The ether has been harnessed to serve as a means of instantaneous communication with any part of the world. Humanity has analyzed and weighed the sun at a distance of millions of miles and has determined, through the aid of imagination, the very elements of which it consists. It has been discovered that the human brain is both a broadcasting and a receiving station for the vibration of thought, and practical use of this discovery is now beginning. The speed of locomotion has increased until travel at more than 300 miles an hour is possible, and the time will soon come when a person may breakfast in New York and lunch in San Francisco. A person's only limitation, within reason, lies in their development and use of their imagination. Humanity has not yet reached the apex of development in the use of this faculty. It has merely been discovered, and its use has only just commenced in a very elementary way. Two forms of imagination. The imaginative faculty functions in two distinct forms. One is known as synthetic imagination, and the other as creative imagination. The synthetic imagination is the faculty through which one may arrange old concepts, ideas, or plans into new combinations. This faculty creates nothing. It merely works with the material of experience, education, and observation with which it is fed. It is the faculty used most by the inventor, with the exception of the genius who draws upon the creative imagination when they cannot solve a problem through the synthetic faculty alone. The creative imagination, by contrast, is the faculty through which the finite mind of man has direct communication with infinite intelligence. It is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. It is by this faculty that all basic or new ideas are handed over to mankind. It is through this faculty that thought vibrations from the minds of others may be received, and through which one individual may gain profound insights into the thoughts and motivations of others. The creative imagination works automatically, but it functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate. This happens, for example, when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. The creative faculty becomes more alert and more receptive to vibrations from these higher sources in proportion to its development through use. This statement is significant and worthy of deep pondering. It must be kept in mind that the entire story of how one may convert desire into money cannot be told in one statement. The story is complete only when one has mastered, assimilated, and begun to make use of all the principles. The great leaders of business, industry, finance, and the great artists, musicians, poets, and writers became great because they developed the faculty of creative imagination. Both the synthetic and creative faculties become more alert with use, just as any muscle or organ of the body develops through use. Desire is only a thought, an impulse. It is nebulous and ephemeral. It is abstract and of no value until it has been transformed into its physical counterpart, while the synthetic imagination is the one which will be used most frequently in the process of transforming the impulse of desire into money. One must keep in mind that they may face circumstances which demand the use of the creative imagination as well as an individual's imaginative Faculty may have become weak through inaction. It can be revived and made alert through use. This faculty does not die, though it may become quiescent through lack of use. For the time being, attention should be centered on the development of the synthetic imagination, as this is the faculty that will be used more often in the process of converting desire into money. This transformation of the intangible impulse of desire into the tangible reality of money calls for the use of a plan or plans. These plans must be formed with the aid of the imagination, and mainly with the synthetic faculty. The author instructs the reader to read the entire book through, then come back to this chapter and begin at once to put their imagination to work on the building of a plan, or plans for the transformation of their desire into money. Detailed instructions for building plans are given in almost every chapter. The reader must carry out the instructions best suited to their needs, and, if they have not already done so, reduce the plan to writing. The moment this is completed, the individual has definitely given concrete form to the intangible desire. This point is so important it bears repeating. The moment the statement of desire and a plan for its realization are reduced to writing, the individual has actually taken the first of a series of steps which will enable them to convert the thought into its physical counterpart. The earth on which we live, our very selves, and every other material thing are the result of evolutionary change, through which microscopic bits of matter have been organized and arranged in an orderly fashion. Moreover, and this statement is of stupendous importance, this earth, every one of the billions of individual cells in a human body, and every atom of matter began as an intangible form of energy. Desire is a thought impulse. Thought impulses are forms of energy. When an individual begins with the thought impulse, desire to accumulate money, they are drafting into their service the very same stuff that nature used in creating this earth and every material form in the universe, including the body and brain, in which the thought impulses function. As far as science has been able to determine, the entire universe consists of but two elements, matter and energy. Through the combination of these two, everything perceptible to man has been created, from the largest star down to humankind itself. The reader is now engaged in the task of trying to profit by nature's method. They are, it is hoped, sincerely and earnestly trying to adapt themselves to nature's laws by endeavoring to convert desire into its physical or monetary equivalent. This can be done. It has been done before. A person can build a fortune through the aid of laws which are immutable. But first, they must become familiar with these laws and learn to use them. Through repetition, and by approaching the description of these principles from every conceivable angle, the author hopes to reveal the secret through which every great fortune has been accumulated. Strange and paradoxical as it may seem, the secret is not a secret. Nature herself advertises it in the earth, the stars, the planets, the elements in every blade of grass and every form of life. Nature advertises this secret in the terms of biology, in the conversion of a tiny cell, so small it may be lost on the point of a pin, into the human being now reading this line. The conversion of desire into its physical equivalent is certainly no more miraculous than this. One should not become discouraged if they do not fully comprehend all that has been stated. Unless one has long been a student of the mind, it is not to be expected that they will assimilate all that is in this chapter upon a first reading. But in time, good progress will be made. The principles which follow will open the way for an understanding of imagination. One must assimilate what they understand upon the first reading. Then, when they reread and study the philosophy, they will discover that something has happened to clarify it and give them a broader understanding of the whole. Above all, one must not stop or hesitate in their study of these principles until they have read the book at least 3 times, for then they will not want to stop. How to make practical use of imagination ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. They are, fundamentally, products of the imagination. It is useful to examine a few well-known ideas that have yielded huge fortunes, as these illustrations convey definite information concerning the method by which imagination may be used. The enchanted kettle A story is told of an old country doctor who, 50 years ago, drove to town, slipped into a drugstore, and began dickering with a young drug clerk. This mission was destined to yield great wealth to many people and bring a far-flung benefit to the South. For more than an hour, the two men talked in low tones behind the prescription counter. When the doctor left, he brought back a large, old-fashioned kettle, a big wooden paddle, and deposited them in the back of the store. The clerk inspected the items, reached into his pocket, and handed over a roll of bills containing exactly $500, his entire life's savings. The doctor, in return, handed over a small slip of paper on which was written a secret formula. The words on that small slip of paper were worth a king's ransom, though not to the doctor. He was simply glad to sell the outfit for $500 to pay off his debts. The clerk, meanwhile, was taking a significant risk, staking his savings on a scrap of paper and an old kettle. He never dreamed his investment would start that kettle overflowing with gold. Surpassing the performance of Aladdin's lamp, what the clerk really purchased that day was an idea. The kettle, the paddle, and the secret message were merely incidental. The strange performance of that kettle began only after the new owner mixed the secret instructions with an ingredient of which the doctor knew nothing. The reader is invited to use their imagination to discover what this young man added to the secret message. This is not a story from Arabian Nights. It is a story of facts, stranger than fiction, which began as an idea. The fortunes this idea has produced are vast. It has paid, and still pays, huge sums to men and women all over the world who distribute the contents of the kettle. This old kettle is now one of the world's largest consumers of sugar, providing permanent jobs to thousands engaged in growing, refining, and marketing it. It consumes millions of glass bottles, employing huge numbers of glass workers. It gives employment to an army of clerks, stenographers, copywriters, and advertising experts. It has brought fame and fortune to scores of artists who created magnificent pictures describing the product. The influence of this idea converted a small southern city into the business capital of the South, benefiting practically every resident. It now benefits every civilized country, pouring out a continuous stream of gold to all who touch it. Gold from the kettle built and maintains one of the most prominent colleges of the South. Furthermore, all through the World Depression, when other businesses were folding by the thousands, the owner of this enchanted kettle went marching on, giving continuous employment to an army of people and paying out extra portions of gold to those who long ago had faith in the idea. The author notes a personal connection. He met his wife near the very spot where the kettle was purchased, and it was she who first told him of it. It was the product of that kettle they were drinking when he asked her to accept him. He confesses that the home city of the drink supplied him with a wife, and the drink itself provides him with stimulation of thought without intoxication, which an author needs to do his best work. The contents of the kettle are, of course, the world-famous drink, Coca-Cola. The author implores the reader to remember, every time they see those words, that its vast empire grew out of a single idea, and the mysterious ingredient that the drug clerk, Asa Candler, mixed with the secret formula was imagination. One should stop and think of that. The 13 steps described in this book were the media through which the influence of Coca-Cola was extended to every corner of the world. Any idea one may create, if it is as sound and meritorious as Coca-Cola, has the possibility of duplicating this stupendous record. Truly, thoughts are things, and their scope of operation is the world itself. What I would do if I had $1,000,000. Another story proves the truth of the old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. It was told by the beloved educator and clergyman, the late Frank W.G.U.N.S.A.U.L.U.S. While Dr. Gonzalez was in college. He observed many defects in the educational system. His deepest desire was to become the head of a college where young people would be taught to learn by doing. He made up his mind to organize a new college, but he needed $1,000,000. This question absorbed his thought. He took the thought to bed with him and got up with it in the morning. He turned it over and over until it became a consuming obsession. $1,000,000 is a lot of money, but Dr. Gonzalez recognized the truth that the only limitation is that which one sets up in one's own mind. Being a philosopher, he recognized that definiteness of purpose is the starting point, and that this purpose takes on life and power when backed by a burning desire to translate it into its material equivalent. He knew these truths, yet he did not know how to get the money. The natural procedure would have been to quit, to say the idea was good but impossible. That is what the majority of people would have done, but not Dr. Gonzalez. He recounted that one Saturday afternoon, after nearly 2 years of nothing but thinking, he decided the time had come for action. He made up his mind, then and there, that he would get the necessary $1,000,000 within a week. He was not concerned with how. The moment he reached that definite decision, a strange feeling of assurance came over him, such as he had never before experienced. Something inside him seemed to say, the money was waiting for you all the time. Things began to happen in a hurry. He called the newspapers and announced he would preach a sermon the following morning entitled, What I Would Do If I Had $1,000,000. The sermon was not difficult to write. He had been preparing it for almost 2 years. Long before midnight, he finished, went to bed, and slept with confidence, for he could see himself already in possession of the $1,000,000. The next morning, he rose, read the sermon, and knelt in prayer, asking that his sermon might come to the attention of someone who would supply the needed money. He again felt that assurance. In his excitement, he walked out and went to his pulpit, only to discover he had forgotten his notes. It was too late to go back, and what a blessing that was. Instead, his own subconscious mind yielded the material. He closed his eyes and spoke with all his heart and soul of his dreams. He described the plan for his great educational institution, where young people would learn practical things while developing their minds. When he finished, a man from the rear of the church slowly made his way to the pulpit, extended his hand and said, Reverend, I liked your sermon. I believe you can do everything you said you would. If you will come to my office tomorrow morning, I will give you the $1,000,000. My name is Philip D. Armour. Young Gonzalez went to Mr. Armour's office, and the $1,000,000 was presented to him. With that money, he founded the Armour Institute of Technology. The necessary $1,000,000 came as a result of an idea. Back of the idea was a desire that Gonzalez had been nursing for almost 2 years. The most important fact is this. He got the money within 36 hours after he reached a definite decision in his own mind to get it, and decided upon a definite plan for getting it. There was nothing new about vaguely thinking about $1,000,000. Many people do that. What was unique was the definite decision he reached on that memorable Saturday. It is stated that the Creator seems to throw himself on the side of the person who knows exactly what they want and is determined to get just that. Moreover, this universal law is still alive and available today. Both Asa Candler and Dr. Gonzalez knew the astounding truth that ideas can be transmuted into cash through the power of definite purpose, plus definite plans. If you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought. It is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. They come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands. based upon the application of definite principles, and not by chance or luck. Generally speaking, an idea is an impulse of thought that impels action by an appeal to the imagination. All master salesmen know that ideas can be sold where merchandise cannot. Ordinary salesmen do not know this. A publisher of nickel books, for instance, learned that many people buy titles, not contents. By merely changing the name of one book that was not moving, ripping off the old cover, and putting on a new one with box office value, his sales on that book jumped by over 1 million copies. The inside of the book was not changed. That was an idea. That was imagination. There is no standard price on ideas. The creator of ideas makes his own price, but the moving picture industry created many millionaires. Most were men who couldn't create ideas themselves, but they had the imagination to recognize ideas when they saw them. The next flock of millionaires will grow out of the radio business. The money will be made by those who discover or create new, meritorious programs and have the imagination to recognize that merit. Sponsor, the one who pays for all radio. Entertainment will soon become idea conscious and demand something useful for his money. Crooners and silly giggles will be replaced by real artists and carefully planned programs designed to service the minds of men, not just entertain. This field is wide open and screaming for rescue by new ideas. Successful radio programs of the future will give more attention to creating buyer audiences, not just listener audiences. They must find practical ways to convert listeners into buyers and prove their effect. Sponsors are weary of claims. They will demand proof. Furthermore, radio advertising will be handled by a new group of experts, distinct from old-time newspaper and magazine men. The new technique demands men who can interpret ideas from a written manuscript in terms of sound, not just sight. Radio is still in its infancy, with plenty of room for those who can produce or recognize ideas. If this opportunity does not start one's idea factory to work, their opportunity is in another field. But if it intrigues them, they should pursue it. One should never be discouraged by a lack of experience. Andrew Carnegie knew very little about making steel. He said so himself. But he made practical use of these principles and surrounded himself with men who could do all that he could not do. He worked in harmony with men who created ideas and men who put them into operation, making himself and the others fabulously rich. Millions of people go through life hoping for favorable breaks. A break might get one an opportunity, but the safest plan is not to depend on luck. The author states that his biggest break was meeting Andrew Carnegie. But 25 years of determined effort had to be devoted to that opportunity before it became an asset. Carnegie planted the idea of organizing the principles of achievement into a philosophy. It was no ordinary desire that survived decades of disappointment, discouragement, temporary defeat, and criticism. It was a burning desire, an obsession. When the idea was first planted in his mind, the author had to coax, nurse, and entice it to remain alive. Gradually, the idea became a giant under its own power, and it began to coax, nurse, and drive him. Ideas are like that. First, you give life, action, and guidance to ideas. Then, they take on power of their own and sweep aside all opposition. Ideas are intangible forces, but they have more power than the physical brains that give birth to them. They have the power to live on, after the brain that created them has returned to dust. As an example, one can take the power of Christianity. That began with a simple idea, born in the mind of Christ. Its chief tenet was, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Christ has gone back to the source from whence he came, but his idea goes marching on. Someday, it may grow up and come into its own, fulfilling his deepest desire. The idea has been developing for only 2,000 years. It must be given time. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Matthew 6:33. May the Lord bless you and guide you in every good work.